Football is back. Yeah. How about it, boys? Don't we love football so much? It feels so good, doesn't it? Doesn't it? Feels so good. 8 months, the off season. Convincing ourselves and all our dreams are going to come true. Our dreams will be forged anew in the Superdome against a bad Florida State team. Everything you hope for out of LSU football, well, out with the old, in with the new. Unfortunately for LSU football, the song remained the same. Felt a hell of a lot like the last couple of years, as this season now, for the third year in a row, opens in bitter disappointment. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Fool me 3 times, I'm a dumb a-hole. And that's how I feel today. And we're going to get into that. I don't even know where to start because I'm still not even entirely sure what I witnessed last night. I don't really know how to process it. I guess the broad strokes are, I saw a game in which LSU was objectively bad in all 3 phases of the game. And yet despite that, thanks to the chaotic and wonderful nature of college football, somehow created one of the most against all odds opportunities I'd ever seen in my entire life, only to then pee down their leg and completely blow said opportunity. It's brutal. It's brutal. The emotion that I felt last night is borderline unhealthy. I'm 33 years old. I'm a father of 2, soon to be 3. I don't know if I can take these sort of emotional swings anymore. I don't know why this sport makes me feel the way it does, but it does. Feeling so low, about 3.5 hours, about 30 seconds of just unrivaled happiness, only that it be crushed with bitter disappointment. I can still taste it. And it's awful. Tastes like a diaper, or rotten sausage, or trash that's been left in the heat for too long. I hate it. And we're going to get into it today, okay? We'll break down the actual game, right? We'll break down, actually what went wrong. Where can you be better? What are you going to do? We will talk about other things. We do have weekend winners. It was a weekend full of college football. And I was hyped on college football, and I still love college football. And I'll tell you why later. We'll recap the big games because it was a fun weekend. But the problem is the celebration was supposed to be this end cap in the Superdome. But again, for the 3rd year in a row, bitter disappointment. Jake, how you feeling today, man?
Yeah.
Hold on, Drew. Go ahead and turn Jake's mic on there.
I think I'm on.
No, not yet. What about now? No. Are you plugged in? You're not plugged in right there. Elijah, that's not on you. This is not plugged in up here. Good job. Sorry. I know that's wow. What a on the nose,
on the
lack
spot.
of execution from us.
That's
not you,
never,
Alondra, not you, but a lack of execution on us. Very reminiscent of last night's game.
Yeah, it is. That's never been unplugged ever.
Nope.
Not one time.
Nope, and I've never seen 2 kicks blocked or missed, not because of the operation, but because you don't know how to field goal protect. Unbelievable!
Yeah, never has the
block! It wasn't a bad snap, not a bad hold, not a bad kick, just block!
Yeah, never has the wing gone out instead of down. There's a lot. There's just a lot to get to. You were very fortunate to even have a chance in that game, the way that game went for 3.5 quarters. There's some things you did well at the end. It should have been like that the entire game. It was not. You wonder, why did it take you to that point to get to that point? Dashboard confessional just played really loud.
Yeah, my bad. I unmuted my computer for a second. Yes, and if you are wondering, I'm in a dark spot. I've been listening to Dashboard like I'm pining over my now wife, then girlfriend in high school when she was flirting with other guys, and I heard that they made out on spring break. Yeah, I'm in a bad way right now. Sorry, Jake, go ahead.
No, and Florida State special teams, John Papuchis, who used to be a coach at LSU when I first got here.
Papuchis?
Special team, yeah. Yeah, he's a special teams coordinator there at Florida State, man. He had a hell of a game plan. You got to tip your cap. And, look, Jordan Travis, tip your cap to him as well. He played extremely well, took shots all night long, stayed in the pocket, delivered the football, got out of pressure multiple times. Again, a lot to break down. That's a game that's still wild that you had a chance there at the end, but not only did you have a chance, I mean, you had it right there, send it to overtime, you've got the momentum, you've got everything that you want there at the end, and one of the most fundamental things in football, an extra point, where it doesn't really matter what level of football you played, you kind of know what the tight end, what the wing, and what they're supposed to be doing together. It was a nice scheme by Florida State, but if you do what you're supposed to do, that never happens. I mean, they had 2 guys free, by the way. I mean, if the first one doesn't block it, the second might.
I mean, guys, they moved the extra point to the 15 in the NFL because it was a mathematical, automatic thing. Like, they literally had to go out of their way to make it harder because it was a wasted play because of how easy it is. And you may say, too bad that's the NFL, that's not college football, and that's fair, but it does not matter. LSU, how many extra points did Cade York hit in 2019? I think he hit every single one in the 1,000 touchdowns that LSU scored. It seems like for whatever reason, the football gods are still punishing for flying so close to the sun in that year. It's unreal, Jake. And honestly, look, I want to preface almost everything we're going to say with this, right? Because for this conversation, let us accept that you can feel 2 different ways, in that I am a cult of Kelly member. You know this. I have been talking about it this entire time, right? In fact, it was one of the things that I was so wrong about in this game, but like, I believe in Brian Kelly long-term still, absolutely. But short-term, this was an objectively awful performance in literally every phase of the game. You almost did not do anything well. I will give a tip of the cap for some moments, and I would actually give an overall tip of the cap to the defense. I didn't feel like they did horrible. I didn't feel like they had a lot of complimentary football around them, and they actually performed pretty valiantly outside of some awful third downs for the majority of the game. But, like, what were the 3 things why we felt so confident about LSU in this game? One was the fact that you thought this defensive line was going to dominate the Florida State offensive line. And if you put the game on Jordan Travis, well, then he would fail. Well, again, I owe a massive apology to him because not only did he fail, he thrived. And the D-line actually played well. I mean, Florida State didn't run the ball for anything. It was like 3 yards a carry. I mean, it was like 38 carries, like 130, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
You put it in his hands. You put pressure on him, and he just made the plays to win the games a lot of times. Then Alex Atkins called a wonderful game as well, which we can get into. But the LSU D-line, while it was valiant, still did not dominate Florida State in the way that I expected. And the Mason Smith thing is obviously a bad break there. I thought LSU's offensive line would not be as bad. And they were definitely the biggest question mark, right? But I felt better about that question mark, and I didn't think Florida State's defensive lines would be able to exploit them. I was wrong. Like, I thought the whole gap was that LSU's D-line was better than Florida State's O-line by a larger gap than the opposite. I was woefully wrong about that. But the biggest thing about this game at the end of the day that I believed was that this staff, with Brian Kelly and Mike Denbrock and Matt House, Napoleon, that this was a much more competent head coach and a much more competent staff. And again, over a longer period of time, I think they'll bear out. I think it will be true. But I thought it would matter in this game. And it did not. Because they were awful. And they got outcoached and outplayed in every single phase of the game. And that's a very bitter pill to swallow after 8 months of hype after the hire.
There were some things late in the game. Certainly the tempo on offense, like that should have been implemented sooner in the game plan. Jaden Daniels looked more comfortable. The offensive line looked more comfortable. The receivers looked more comfortable in going fast, in the tempo. And you can run tempo all game now in college football. We all know that. We have seen it. There's too many teams that do it. So the tempo was working really well for them, but they found the tempo about 48, 49 minutes into the game. When you look at some of the other things defensively, I agree with you, T. There's some things to take defensively, but the third downs, conversions,
awful.
You got to get off the field. And so there's some things that make you wonder, okay, why did it take to that point to get there? And look, Florida State looked like a team that had played a game. We talked about that last week. I mean, they looked like a team that had played a game.
See, I mean, I know that is true.
But you have to think about this, though, T. Like, that's also, like, with coaching and coaching decisions and finding out, like, little nuances. It is definitely not the reason Florida State won this game. Florida State went out there and took the game.
No, my only problem with the warm-up game.
That.
No, I know, and I feel you. I'm not saying you don't get better from game 1 to game 2. You obviously do, right?
Not even that. Just tackling and blocking and just decision-making.
But the problem is it is literally mathematically proven that over time that warm-up game is actually not an advantage. They win at like a 40% rate when you have the warm-up game. Like yes, okay, Florida State, sure, they got to do all that thing in terms of knocking the rust off and everything, but LSU also had a full game of film to break down. LSU had a complete element of surprise in that defensive scheme and that offensive scheme.
I'm talking about more the physical part of football is the main part of it, and then also like the figuring some of the things out, like having been in those situations. It's not just for players, it's for coaches as well. Again, it's not why you lost the game. It's a part of it. Part of the story. Like there's something I think that Florida State took value in playing that game before.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, dude. I mean, obviously, yes, it had it had a positive impact on Florida State, but just traditionally, that is an advantage that normally does not that doesn't normally lead to that team winning. LSU has suffered at the hands of it now 2 years in a row. But 3 years in a row now, you've looked like just absolute garbage in the first game. It's brutal. And maybe the most disappointing part about the game, Jake, I think we were talking before the show, and you're like, I just wish we would have gotten blown out. It honestly almost would have been easier to swallow had you lost 24-10. Now we might be in like more of a panic mode, but and the boys fought, and that was great. And the 99-yard drive was fantastic, even with some lucky breaks, right? With the Mason Taylor knee being down at bounds, but then they don't call it like that, and you still end up getting the extra play and everything. Like, there were valiant plays all around, but I'll be damned if it didn't hurt way worse in the way that it ended up going down, just to crumble in defeat.
Yeah.
Like you did.
Felt like John Carney all over again, times about 3.
So I think I said that earlier today, last night, whenever Whiskey and Wine was, that someone needs to go ahead on the internet there, and if you want free internet points, you want a meme, put the Jim Henderson call over the LSU mixed extra point. Oh my God, he missed it! Danny, you could actually probably do that. Yeah, let's go ahead and do that so we can really just sometimes it's like listening to Dashboard Confessional. Sometimes when you're sad, you just want to twist the knife in your own belly. That'll be a good exercise in doing that. Deontay Ellis says, don't understand why you're all panicking. Again, this is what I want. Again, this is why I prefaced this entire conversation with this. This is a recap show of yesterday's game. We can get into conversations about where this season will go or could go, where this program would go years down the road, but those are all different conversations. If we are judging yesterday's game, it's not that panic is going to carry forward, but yesterday's game was trash. Brian Kelly told you after the first half. I've never seen that coming out of the first half. What did he say? He said, I don't think we could have played worse. And again, it's my first game. Maybe we can. Like, it was awful. And that's not a good Florida State team. They are improved. Yes. Not a good Florida State team still. They will not threaten for the ACC. Or at least I don't think so, but what do I know? For the third year in a row, I've sunshine pumped myself into oblivion. And I get a lot of people losing. I literally handed out the worst possible same game parlay on the volume that you could possibly imagine.
Oh no, what'd you do?
LSU money line, the over, and a Kayshon Boutte to anytime touchdown. Such an aggressively bad 3 bets considering how that game played out. You lost. The over should have never even gotten sniffed, even though it somehow did. And Kayshon Boutte's performance was one of the big storylines of the night. I say performance or maybe lack thereof. All right. When we get back, what do you want to do, Jake? You want us to actually start to talk about some of the actual football? I feel like I've just been dealing some very broad emotional strokes right now.
Yeah, because obviously there's things to break down in the game.
Yeah.
The way the game ended, that was always going to be the way that we opened the show. And there's some things that we can point to: first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter. I mean, there were so many different variations, it felt like, of this game. So many quirks to this game, so many stats that are hard to believe. Like, you muffed 2 punts and they didn't score a single point off either muff punt deep in your own territory. Like that, you know how hard that is to do? I mean, there's a lot of quirks in this game to kind of break down. So,
Jake, in terms of the actual game itself, where do you want to start here? There's a lot of bad with which we can draw. We could go like a 3 phases of the game situation. Where do you want to start here?
probably the quarterback play, because
That's good. Yeah, okay, that's a great play.
I'll be honest with you, like certainly the first half, okay, you're wondering, it's like, man, okay, Jaden's doing really, really well with the running portion of it, escaping and doing all of that. It's like, okay, but is he reading the defense? Is the offensive line giving him time to read the defense? And there was going to be question marks. I think if you're trying to look for a positive for LSU, once they went tempo, he was a different quarterback. I mean, the final 3 drives lead, the team down the field, and they scored touchdowns. Looked like a completely different quarterback. Stood tall in the block. Even the last play, not the block takes your point, but the last offensive play, stood tall in the pocket, did not panic, didn't try to escape, stood tall, throws it over the defender for Dre in the back of the end zone.
Beautiful.
So there was growth within Jaden Daniels throughout the game, but it was when they changed the offense up, whenever they went tempo and they actually tried some different formations, you started to get the receivers involved in the game. That room was too talented to not have a catch in the first quarter. That room is too talented not to be emphasized throughout the game multiple times. Like, we know that. And once they made the change, it looked different. But why did it take as long as it did to get to that? Because you were playing from behind most of the game. Even if the scoreboard didn't tell you that you were down multiple scores, you were only down 1 score. The play a game, the way it was playing out, you were behind, and you needed to try something to try to speed up the clock a little bit.
It was nigh on a miracle that you were down 7-3 at half, given how everything played out.
Completely.
Like that was like that's how you know it was bad, is that my sunshine pumping, like, galaxy brain, let's try to get some juice going for the second half takeaway, was that, okay, like Brian Kelly told you, you literally could not have played worse, and yet you're down 4 points, so maybe that's a good sign for the second half. Let's zero in on Jaden Daniels here. This is going to be, I do not want to make any sweeping conclusions yet without watching the film, right? Certainly Jaden's statistical output ended up being very solid by game's end. And the problem that I have in kind of reacting to his performance right now is that it's tough on the first viewing, before you've gotten to watch the film, to parse, okay, how many times was Jaden Daniels forced to run because of awful protection? And granted, like, the protection was very bad early on. Make no mistake about that. Like, he was definitely under pressure.
Yeah. He was the quarterback that could at least make a play in that situation.
Yeah, absolutely. But then there were times when it's not a great pocket, but it's a pocket you can navigate and keep your eyes downfield and deliver the ball. Like you saw Jordan Travis do that. Jordan Travis was under pressure a lot as well, but he escaped and he kept his eyes downfield, and he was consistently delivering the ball to his wideouts. We'll know more by tomorrow when we get to rewatch this game, but at times it felt like Jaden was very quick to tuck it. Now, like you said, Jake, I think it's also important to point out that you seem to have seen growth in this game alone, right? Maybe it was jitters at first in terms of how quick he was to tuck and run. and it obviously played out successfully for him. And so maybe you get more of second half Jaden Daniels as it goes on. And look, Jaden Daniels is not the problem, certainly. Like, he's not what cost you this game by any means. In fact, he's kind of the only reason that you were in it. But when it comes to quarterback play, it's always what's going to be critiqued, and it's always what is going to be overjudged. And I guess why it's concerning is because it is literally exactly what Arizona State's offensive coordinator said about him. Brody tweeted out an article from The Athletic that was pretty interesting where the OC was talking about, his running ability can be a bit of a double-edged sword at times, and that it creates these incredible plays where he can make something out of nothing, but it does potentially take away from the passing game at times because he's not going all the way through his reads. I don't want to hammer that, but it did feel like at times he was going one read and bailing quickly. And partially that is, so if that's already kind of your instinct or the player that you've been, and then you combine that with a bad offensive line, it's an awful combination. And it becomes worse when the main strength of your team is in a wide receiver room because you can't get the ball to the wide receivers. So it's like, I don't know, it's like being right-handed and sword fighting without your right hand. Like sort of like it just LSU's greatest strength are their wide receivers, and for the vast majority of this game, they were completely unable to take advantage of that strength at all. I mean, what do you think about the Daniels one read and tuck thing?
Okay, so watching the way the offensive line was getting pushed and collapsing pockets. So if you're the quarterback and you apparently this article, you have a tendency to do that, then yeah, that tendency is going to go up because you feel like you don't have that time. That clock in your head is going off and there's a buzzer sounding like I've got to either get this ball out or I've got to tuck it and run. And when your first read isn't there, a lot of times you're not going to 2 and 3 because you feel like that pocket is collapsing.
And it was a lot of times. Again, like it was a lot of times. Like we're kind of like
there were some times in the first half, you'd like to see him step up. But I thought as the game progressed, I thought he actually did a nice job of growing with the game. And again,
that's fair.
He felt like the tempo not only helped him, it helped the receivers, as I mentioned. It helped the offensive line, right? It got Florida State's defensive line a little gassed. The edge rushers for Florida State, they had a great night, but they looked different once you started going tempo, and that's where he was comfortable. You could tell Jaden Daniels was comfortable in that scenario, in that tempo, because that's when he actually started to stand tall in the pocket. That's when he started delivering the football down the field. So, yeah, there was some times early that there was a pocket to step up into, and I was yelling just like everyone else. But you have to know, like, once you start to see your offensive line was struggling like they were, then you're only going to have the one read. I'm not saying right, wrong, or indifferent, but you could tell that was the case. And then once he had the time, I thought he played well down the stretch.
Yeah, he really did. And it's interesting because Jordan Travis on the other side also benefited from tempo. Florida State came out with tempo for a lot of the game as well, and it negated. It's like tempo's like okay, so LSU's other greatest strength outside of wide receiver was the front seven, right? If you think you have a bad offensive line and you think the other team has a very good front seven capable of exploiting your offensive line, what is the best way to handle that? With tempo. It exhausts them. It doesn't allow them to sub. It's hard for them to really lean on you. Now, it's a bit of a double-edged sword because if you go out there and you get shut down 3 plays in about 30 seconds, that is absolutely deflating, especially for your defense. But it didn't happen to Florida State because they were consistently able to convert on third down. And it was just a master class of play calling by Alex Atkins. Now, somebody tried to tell me that Atkins wasn't calling plays that Norvell was. I didn't see a play sheet in Norvell's hand, but I don't want to go too hard either way. I think it was the OC Atkins calling plays. Whoever it was for Florida State was doing a great job. When they were getting a second and long, they were consistently setting up third and manageable, and they were executing on third down, and they were moving the chains constantly.
Norvell's been their play caller for every game that he's been in, unless you saw something different. He had a play sheet as well. Now
so we did have a play. I thought Dillingham called plays last year. The dude that's at Oregon now.
So the way that I understood it, like he still had the play sheet, and there's that conversation between him. I don't know if he's fully given that away. I don't know if he's taken that back. I don't know, because he's always obviously been an OC guy. That's how he got his job.
I just want to credit whoever it was, whether it was Atkins or Norvell.
I agree with you.
The overall point is that it was really good play calling.
Formations, I thought knowing when to take shots.
Yep. Like
thought
after you
that
get
was-
the TFL to make it 2nd and 13, you say, okay, we're going to go for it. I mean,
We're going to go in our bag. You typically don't go in the bag. Like, you'll go in the bag after you get something positive.
Yes.
A 15-yard penalty your way, or you have whatever it is, explosive run, make it 2nd and 1. And so I thought that they did a really nice job. I mean, formations, I thought they came out and they had LSU's defense trying to guess on some of those third downs. I mean, there was guys wide open on those third downs.